All right, welcome to the Police and Fire Commission meeting. First order of business is a call to order. And second item of business is approval of minutes. So in the pre-read packet, we've got a couple different items, including our draft minutes from the April 20th, 2022 meeting. Has everyone had a chance?
Move approval of the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? One thing I noted is, I believe, and it's more just a procedural thing, but at the bottom of page 1 of 4 of the minutes, it references that we had originally planned to meet on April 27th to approve the new board members. And I think we thought we had a responsibility to do that. Ultimately, we determined we did not have that responsibility. But I think when we left the meeting in April, we still thought we had it. So I think some of that language at the end of this page, page 1 of 4 of the minutes, I don't think we actually talked about and isn't technically part of the minutes. Does that seem right to others?
I think we're going to have the meeting.
Right, but at the meeting, we actually didn't make that, we didn't actually realize we didn't need to meet again, or to make that election. So with that, yeah, you're right, I could update the meeting minutes to make sure that it reflects actually what happened in the meeting, so I could definitely amend those.
That's what I was thinking, is just
Yep.
to reflect what actually happened in the meeting
Yep.
rather than kind of after the fact. So I guess what I would propose then is, at the bottom of page 1 of 4, there's a sentence that starts, "The only actions this commission will need to make." I think we leave that sentence because I believe at the time that was what we thought. Mm-hmm. And the next sentence that is at the end of this page, "The election will be held at the May meeting," I think we strike that as well as everything in the next page in section B, because I don't think that was discussed at our April meeting.
Right.
So with that procedurally, maybe,
So can I amend my motion to reflect the changes just spoken about by Mr. O'Day?
Yep.
that works? In a second?
And I can second that.
Okay. Any other discussion about the proposed meeting minutes? All right, then all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Going back to our agenda, we'll move to item number 3 on the agenda, public appearances for non-agenda items. All right, please.
My name is Colleen Chase, and I'm a Fitchburg resident. I'm just here to say thank you to our fine Fitchburg Police Department. Thank you for your service, and thank you for keeping us safe. It's appreciated. It is in honor of National Police Week as well. Thank you all.
That's very thoughtful. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. Any other public appearances for non-agenda items? Well, that is a wonderful non-agenda item and public appearance, so thank you for it. And both chiefs, I think, often enough we don't thank you for everything that you do. I think the fire service had a recognition week recently as well, and thank you for everything that the both of you do and for all your services that they do. All right, seeing no other public appearances for non-agenda items, we'll move to number 4 on the agenda, welcoming our brand-new commissioners, Baxter and Johanning, and the election of a president and vice president. So welcome, new members. We're happy to have you here, and we know you've gotten acquainted with some of the materials that have flowed your way, which is quite a bit. But if either of you would just like to say a few words, you're certainly welcome to do so. Don't have to.
I'm Amy Johanning, and thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm following my grandfather's long bell reign on the police and Fire Commission, so I'm super excited that I can kind of follow in his footsteps, and I'm very passionate and grateful for our amazing first responders that we have here in Fitchburg. I think I'm a 5th generation, and I'm excited to serve, so thank you for having me.
Great, thank you.
Ditto. I'm really happy and excited to finally be here. Been close to Fitchburg for a very long time. Big supporter of everything that the police and fire department has done for our city, and excited to be able to be a small part of that. And looking forward to serving with my fellow commissioners and learning a lot about how we can make Fitchburg better.
Great. All right. Thank you very much to both of you, and welcome. So we have an election process that we need to engage in for the election of a president and vice president. My understanding, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, the role of the president is to manage the agenda ahead of time with Sarah's very great assistance, and then to run the meetings. The role of the vice president is to step into those shoes to the extent that the president isn't able to do so. And I believe those are the only, significant responsibilities of the president and vice president. I suspect if we went to our rules and regulations and bylaws of sorts that we have for our police and fire commission, there's language there that identifies the role of the president and vice president as well.
I can actually share the rules and regs, if you wanted just to kind of take a look at what the president and the vice president
If you could,
are
thank you.
expected. You bet. So we just updated this in 2020. Before that, it had been, boy, I want to say 10 years before it was updated, so it's been a really long time. Let me share my screen here. So it really walks you through, this was emailed out to you, Amy and Sean, too, but it kind of walks through the purpose, mission, and scope of the commission, and then the meetings. But here's the duties of the president, vice president, and then the recording secretary.
Sarah, will you just email all of us
Oh,
this again?
yeah.
I think it's always good just to review it and kind of reflect back as to our roles.
Absolutely. And I mean, really, just as O'Day had said, the vice president acts on behalf of the president when they're not there. But the only other thing, as president of the commission, you serve as the public spokesperson for the commission, and receive any charges or, you can see all of the bullets there. That doesn't happen very often, but really helping me set the agenda and making sure that we're on track and that we're meeting regularly and talking about everything that we need to discuss.
Any thoughts or questions about the roles or the process? Okay. Well, I think maybe the way we could do this and the way we've done it in the past, it doesn't mean it has to be done this way, is just take nominations. Individuals can self-nominate, or if they want to nominate another individual for either one of the president or vice president roles. Sarah, in her role, plays that recording secretary role and responsibility. So why don't we just open it up to the floor for any nominations for president and or vice president role?
I would like to nominate Tom O'Day for the president position.
Okay, why don't we, and I guess we should have seconds behind every nomination as well.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other nominations for the president role? Well, I would nominate, and it really is just a question of seniority and someone who's had experience. I'd nominate Sheena for the vice president role, if that's something that would be of interest, Sheena.
Yeah, I would. Thank you.
I second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. Why don't we vote on the vice president role first? And then I will turn it over to whoever the vice president is, and then you can run it for the president nomination. All right, so we have a motion and a second for Commissioner Amble to serve as vice president of the Police and Fire Commission. Any further discussion on that nomination? All right, all those in favor, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Commissioner Amble is abstaining from the vote. Is that right?
No,
You voted yes?
I don't, do I vote on that?
I don't know that she has to vote if she's being nominated.
I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough. Then I will turn it over to, congratulations, Vice President Commissioner Amble.
Thank you. And then we'll move forward with that, and then I will make a motion, abiding by our second that we had as well, is to make Commissioner O'Day our president of the Police and Fire Commission. Do I have a second? Oh,
Yeah, I think we had a second earlier. Was it,
So on-
Brian, was that you, or,
it was me. Do I
okay.
get to do,
Oh, that's right. Amy made the motion,
and then I
and,
second it.
right.
And so we'll make another motion to make it official.
Yes, we need one more second just to make it official.
The double stamp. All those in favor of making Commissioner O'Day the president of the Fitchburg Police and Fire Commission? Aye.
And I will abstain. All right,
Just like that.
thank you very much. Okay, well, let's move on. One of the things that we did this time is just change the order of the agenda. For as long as I've been around, it's been the police report first and then the fire department report second. And I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to that, but I thought we might just go every other month just to kind of get both sides. So we have agenda item number 5 on our agenda tonight is a report from the fire department. So Chief, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and greetings from the National Fire Academy, where I'm attending a fire service financial management class. It's been a great class. I've been able to network with fire chiefs from around the United States, and it's allowing me a little broader perspective as far as what we're seeing throughout our fire service and how we can bring that back to Fitchburg. So a little plug for the National Fire Academy. What you have in front of you, actually, Sarah has an updated report based on some information that you requested at the last meeting. You can see that our call volume is consistent with what we've seen in the past. We're up a little bit, and we're expecting those numbers to continue to grow, especially with the acquisition of the town of Madison in October. Those numbers will go up even more. It's the consistency with everything from our most common call types to inspections is suggesting that we have plenty of work to do, and the staffing of our fire department is going to be important. The second part of that form will change after today's meeting, hopefully, with the numbers based on the recommendations that we're going to be bringing forward for career firefighter. But right now we do have 2 vacancies in that career spot. And then there's some other personal notes there. And one of the things that I'd like to bring up is we've had the privilege of seeing 3 of our intern candidates, actually intern firefighters, graduate out of the Madison College Associate Program over the last week. We've seen 3 of our former firefighters and interns be hired in full-time departments. So we're pretty fortunate to be able to tap from that talent while they're here. We know that as long as we can't provide them with a professional, a career job, that they are likely to move on. But that is one of our biggest recruitment tools, is the fact that we train people to the point where they can seek employment and make this part of a living profession. We're also working on the recruitment. We'll be finishing up the career recruitment process today with the recommendation of those candidates in closed session. We are going to be starting our paid on premises firefighters in their recruit training this month. It was initially slated for April. We were trying to see exactly what was going to be needed with the career firefighters in the event that we hired somebody from the outside. So some of that training was postponed until we knew more. Other things that are happening, if you look off to the right a little bit, we are still working on promoted positions within our department. One of the things that we are working with the council on right now through a budget amendment is to try to get a chief level officer to have more command staff representation within the department, and that's going before the council late May, early June. It's also going to be going before finance and personnel. And with that, we'll have to address, especially if we have an internal candidate for that position, we'll have to address the promotions of our lieutenant candidates. And so that process will have to move forward. You continued to ask about the overtime that we have, and you can see the overtime in the mandates based on the information provided on the sheet. And then you had also asked about how much time I was putting in and other command staff officers were putting in. So you can see the hours that I've been putting in. I have the ability to staff from my home when I'm at home, but I am still, for all intents and purposes, on duty on those days. So the numbers that you're seeing are actual numbers of what I have been committing to the fire department over the past 4 pay cycles. And then you get an idea of how Chief Grossen is doing some of the same. So yeah, the command staff positions are needed in the department, and we've communicated that already. And we seem to have the support of the city administrator and the mayor, and working on support from the council to move those initiatives forward. So with that, I'll pause to see if you have any questions as far as the report, and before we move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Chief, for sharing these hours. I think these are shocking for some people to see. I know how much time and effort it takes to do your role, and also your other staff as well. This overtime, the first column, is that just the full-time firefighters? None of your paid on call are accumulating any overtime, right?
Our paid on premises will take on overtime. They do get paid overtime when they put in more than 40 hours. But it's not a mandate for them. The overtime for our career staff are more or less part of their day-to-day jobs. So we have a little bit more latitude as the administration to put them in those overtime roles. Whereas with the paid on premises and our paid on call, when they fill overtime, it is by choice. So what you're seeing here is the career hours reflected, not necessarily the paid on premises.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Chief, just to clarify that last statement you made, there's a column that says overtime, January, February, March, and April hours. That's all overtime in the department for overtime eligible individuals, correct?
That's overtime, career overtime for those months.
Just career overtime there. And then below that, there's a table that says mandates at the top of it. Those are overtime hours that someone didn't volunteer to work overtime, but there's a need for it, and you've required them to mandatorily work this overtime. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that happens with our career folks. I can't mandate our paid on well, I could mandate our paid on premises firefighters, but I would likely lose them based on other responsibilities that they have for their day-to-day lives and their living, their careers, their full-time jobs. But our career folks, if we have a vacant seat that needs to be filled and there is no paid on premises available for it, then it goes to our career folks, and if they don't volunteer for it, then we pick the person who's lowest on that list and mandate them in.
And then, just for our benefit, the D/O in the position column, that's driver operator, correct? That's been ordered.
That's correct.
Okay.
So typically you'll see 3 different positions that need to be filled. It'll either be firefighter, driver operator, or officer.
Chief, under personnel notes, leave of absence, you've got 4 listed there. Are those career or paid on premise?
Leave of absence, all 4 of those were paid on premises, but all 4 had accepted employment with another department. The reason why they're leave of absence is because while they're in their probationary status at this full-time department, they may be released for whatever reason, and that could be a personal injury type situation. So we want to make sure that they have the ability to transition into the fire department quicker because they've already been through the process and they've established their training and their skills. So if they do come back to us, it gives us the ability to instead of go through the hiring process, just to take them off of the leave of absence. It would still come before you. You'd be made aware of the fact that we're bringing people back on staff. But this streamlines that process so that those who have left in good standing can easily transition back on the department without the hiring process.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, Chief, for the new commissioners, can you take just a minute and explain to us the top table and in relation to authorized headcount, regular members and such, so we have an understanding of what that's showing us?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically the makeup of our department, we're a combination department. We have career and part-time or paid on premises, paid on call firefighters. We also have a number of people that work for us that are called support staff. They're typically people who do not possess a certification in firefighting and still want to serve their community. So there are a couple of things that we have available for people who don't necessarily serve in a firefighter function. They work a lot less hours, but they do provide us some degree of skill when it comes to things like recruitment, when it comes to things like staffing radios, or even assisting command staff roles as like a scribe on scene. So they're people who possess skills that are independent of firefighting. So our support staff, we have 10 authorized right now. We have 9 of those folks that are working with us. We have 60 part-time authorized within our ranks. And that's what we try to budget for every year. And right now we're filling 32 of those positions. That's not uncommon. We're seeing a significant recruitment downfall in the fire service in part-time and volunteer firefighters. So we try to get in front of it. We try to stay on top of it. But 32, although low from our authorized head count, it is about what we've been seeing over the past 6 years, at least since I've been here. We're authorized 6 intern staff. Those are the firefighters that typically come right out of high school. They may have a little bit of knowledge in firefighting. We get them enrolled in Madison College, and they are able to earn their certifications, their associate degree, their EMS licensures. And those are the firefighters that typically after 2 years have the skills, the ability, and the education to write an application just about anywhere. We have about a 95% placement rating with our firefighters that come out of our intern program. It's a strong program, and we're very proud of it. We'll be putting 3 more interns on staff in June that you have already approved. I think about a month and a half ago. The firefighters, lieutenants, and chiefs, that gives you an idea of the number of career firefighters we have filling those roles. In our part-time ranks, we have a few people who are in officers' roles. They just aren't recognized as career staff. So those numbers give you an idea of how many we have. The 2 positions that we'll be filling today is the firefighter positions. You see that we're authorized for 9, and we're at 7 right now. So we're down 2. The probationary members, anybody who's got less than 18 months on the City of Fitchburg Fire Department, goes through a probationary period. They're basically an at-will employee at that point. If we have any discrepancies in their performance, there's a process for addressing that. We try not to eliminate positions with all mistakes, but sometimes it's necessary to address those things during probation. We haven't had a problem so far. Light duty, there is one correction to be made on this form. We do have one career firefighter that is on light duty, and that just happened over the past week or so. It was an off-duty injury, and we have allowed him to come in and perform some clerical duties that are required with inspections and some other things that are needed with our incident management system, or excuse me, our information management system, our records, our reports. And so the plus or minus is supposed to indicate how that's gone up or down over the past month since we've met last. The male-female selection is self-reported as far as how our employees represent themselves. So that speaks to how they've typically how they've identified on their application. And then the same pertains to anything that was a reportable race or ethnic indication. So everything that's on there is based on how our employees self-reported.
Great, thank you for that. And just point of clarification, part-time staff is the same as paid on premise?
Yes, paid on premises, paid on call.
Okay. Has it been decided already how those numbers change when October comes around and the town of Madison is partially absorbed by Fitchburg? Has that already been determined?
With next year's budget, we're going through next year's budget right now. As far as this year's budget, nothing will change. We do know that we are going to have conversations about staffing moving forward. And one of the things that the city has agreed to do is to do a municipal staffing study based on some ARPA funding that we have received. So that's one-time expenditure. It seemed to be an appropriate use of funds. It is actually an excellent use of funds. And that'll give us an idea of how we can prioritize staffing throughout the city. I anticipate that we're going to see the need in the fire department to address staffing, not only in the short term, but over the long term.
Thank you.
Chief, one thing I noticed going back to the calls for service, there were 21 structure fires in the month of April, and before that, there were 9 in March and 8 in February. And as I look back to the past year, and it's not reflected in this document, but that seems really high. And
yeah,
any thoughts?
So the unfortunate thing is the structure fires, the way that it's that they're identified in our National Fire Incident Reporting System. It's also known as NFIRS or NIFRS. They're pretty liberal with the definition. Typically, the way that I would describe a structure fire is anything that requires us to use multiple companies to include mutual aid, and they had to actually actively engage a working fire. The typical number that we would see is about 2 a month. But because of the way that it's listed in NIFRS, something that it happens in the structure, and maybe it's just a room and contents or a contents fire, it's listed as a structure fire. So it's a little misleading. And actually, that's one thing that I learned here in the National Fire Academy through the fire administrator is her priority is to address data collection and identify some of these discrepancies that we're seeing throughout the United States. So it's a little misleading. Typically, if we were to see the number of structure fires where we're actually advancing hose lines into buildings and extinguishing fire, you can anticipate about 8 to 12 of those a year.
Chief, just to follow up on that, are any of these mutual aids, or are these all in Fitchburg?
Typically, we do not report on mutual aid. We don't collect the data for mutual aid responses. So anything that would be listed as a structure fire would typically be fires that we have fought in the city.
Thank you.
And when you say mutual aid, that means another city or municipality is coming to help out with whatever need there is?
Yeah, so we have automatic aid and mutual aid. So automatic aid happens with a couple of neighboring municipalities, namely Oregon, Madison, and Verona. If we have anything that comes in as a working structure fire, we will get units from those municipalities immediately on the initial dispatch. Then if it's a larger fire, one that requires more resources, we can institute the mutual aid box alarm system, which can give us resources from around the region, the state, and interstate. So it's a pretty robust system that's been very well vetted, and it provides us with a great deal of resources and personnel in the event that we have an escalating incident that exceeds our capabilities.
Chief, can you speak to the inspections for a moment? What drives the variability month after month?
I think, well, part of it is the initial month, January and February, they have a tendency of being a little bit colder. And there's other things that we do in the station during those months. As it starts getting warmer and as our crews can get out and maybe walk around properties without being, certain things being obstructed by snow piles, those types of things. When we can't truly inspect the entire property, we put those off until later in the year. Many of our occupancies have to be inspected twice a year, and some have to be inspected once a year. So that's why you'll see the variation in the numbers. Right around June is when we complete our first round, and then our second round starts in July. So because we just got done with doing a lot of inspections in June, you'll see that the numbers go down and then they ramp up. And then you can probably predict in the state of Wisconsin that during September and early October, we start seeing hunting and those types of things. It does affect some of the numbers. And then December, hopefully we're in front of our inspections at that point, to the point where we're just playing either catch up on some lingering inspections, or we're conducting a re-inspections of violations.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other questions or comments or thoughts about the fire department staffing report? All right, then why don't we move on to agenda item 5B, which is a proposed closed session. Would anyone like to move us into closed session?
So moved.
And for these closed sessions, for purposes of the open records and open meeting statute, we have to read the actual language in the
Do you have it?
in the motion. So yeah, it's at the top, or it's on the first page of the agenda.
So the whole thing pursuant to?
Yeah.
Pursuant to section 19.851C Wisconsin statutes, the commission will move into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or jurisdiction, or exercising responsibility. More specifically, to make hiring recommendations for new career firefighters, 2 new career firefighters, excuse me.
All right, thank you. Any second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor and moving into closed session, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. All right, we'll head into closed session. All right, we are back into open session from our closed session under agenda item 5B, so we're now on agenda item 5C. Any motions coming out of the closed session?
I'm going to make a motion that we accept the recommendations of the fire chief and issue 2 conditional offers to 2 firefighters for career positions.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of accepting the chief's recommendation, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Any other motions coming out of closed session?
I would like to I would like to make a motion to retain an eligibility list of 4 applicants per the chief's suggestion for potential career firefighters, should we need to pull from that list.
And would that be for a period of how long?
No more than 1 year, up to 1 year.
Okay, thank you. I'll second the motion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that motion passes as well.
Thank you,
Anything else
everyone.
for-
Have a good night.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, thank you very much, and have a great night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else under open session for agenda item 5C? All right, hearing none, let's move to the report from the police department. Chief?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome aboard Commissioner Johanning and Commissioner Baxter. Very happy to have you here. I'm going to be a little long-winded today, and I think for some of it to be historical, and also I'm fairly new myself here, just over 6 months with the Fitchburg Police Department. So if I get too long-winded, Sarah, cut me off or throw something my way. But we're gonna start off with the staffing report. The Fitchburg Police Department is authorized for a total of 54 sworn. We currently have 4 vacancies, and we have 3 currently in field training, 1 at the Law Enforcement Academy, and total of 7 positions unfilled. The reason why those positions are that is some are in field training, and they can't be accounted for filling positions if they cannot work on their own. The things that I want to mention is this is all going to change in a week because we have 3 new hires. 2 of them are lateral transfers, and 1 of them is going to be graduating from the academy. We had 1 that graduated last week, so that takes him off the list, but they will now be in field training as of next week, meaning we will have 1 in the training academy and 4 in field training. I will name those to kind of give you an idea. We are, I'm skipping ahead here, but we are going to have a ceremony for the officers' badge pinning ceremony. I think it's very important to acknowledge the date you hire and any other upward promotions within the organization. It's good for morale, it's healthy for everybody, and I'll bring this up in some of the future updates that I'm going to be talking about later on today as well, but those are milestones in our career to look forward to be, if you want to be a part of a team, you have to acknowledge successes and advancements within there. And when we can bring something to the table with a pinning ceremony and include the city of Fitchburg leadership or other areas to come in, ability to have family come in and also see that acknowledgement, it's very important. I know in my career, those are the ones I remember. I remember the leadership that spoke to me during those days and the things that they kind of told me, what they saw in me and where they wanted to see me be. So I think it's important to have those, and we will be having that here on forward for any position, whether it's sworn or civilian within our organization. Sarah and I talk a lot. I didn't know we were going to be partners in things, but we even talk about how you do this for the rest of the city of Fitchburg, just to keep people engaged within, our city here and City Hall. So those people, Ramon Christian Dominguez will graduated from Madison Technical College. He graduated last Friday. He is off this week, but he will start his first day on Monday when our ceremony is going to be going to occur. Craig Spangler, he will be graduating this Friday from the Black Hawk Technical College, and he will be his badge he'll be pinning his badge next Monday and starting his first day. Out of this recent hiring process, Sean Lauda will start his first day next Monday, and he is a retired 26-year veteran from Milwaukee. It's when you say retired, it sounds like you're old. He's in his mid-40s. He was a police aide in Milwaukee. So that's a different pension program. He is not in the Wisconsin state system. And he will be coming over here to start a career, something that we're going to be talking about later for potential recruitment possibilities. Isaac Payton will be starting with us on Monday, but he will be starting here, learning the interior part of the department. He will not be out on the streets until he goes through the academy. He starts in June, so he will have a separate badge pinning ceremony that will be when he graduates from the police academy, Lord permitting, he passes everything. And Matthew Tesh is coming from Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. He's currently employed there, working the jail, so he will be a lateral transfer as well, and he will be on field training. So we didn't get all the vacancy positions filled. We're still going to be short one, and we'll talk about this later on the hiring process, but we do have 5 great applicants that are now on the department, and we're very excited to work with them and move them along the process. So that's what I have for staff report. The makeup of the department, the demographics. We had 1 officer retire a couple of weeks ago, Virginia Thane. So we're down from 8 females to 7. We have 43 males on the department. 41 of them are white, 2 are black, and 8 are Hispanic. If you want the percentages, 13% of the department is female, 84% male, 80% white, 3% black, and 15% Hispanic. No Asian or other races on the organization. The last piece I will talk about in our staffing report is we do have 5 people eligible within the organization that can retire this year. I think 1, and there's mentioned 2 have verbally confirmed that they're probably going to be retiring, 1 within the summer and 1 in the early fall. So we're currently, we currently have 1, well, by next week, I'm sorry, we will have 1 vacancy, but by the fall, we'll be down to 3. And what I'm learning in Dane County is there's a lot of poaching that goes on. So it's, realistically, it's very easy to lose officers. I know there's 1 that is seeking a position in a federal agency, and it's just a matter of time before he gets called. So this is a constant. If you go back 30 years, there was a waiting list to get on a department like this, and now it's completely opposite. Being around long enough, I could tell you it's a pendulum, and it will change. And the things that we look at for recruiting, and we're putting a lot of thought in it, we have ideas that we should probably implement during this lull, but things will get better. I'm confident of that.
Chief, is there a requirement for the ones that are eligible to retire? Is there a requirement like that they have to notify so far in advance, or is it? They have to give you lead time, I guess is what I'm getting.
Right. I don't know if it's a requirement. If Sarah can answer that, I know for non-exempt.
Yeah, we don't have a requirement. I mean, for exempt employees or department heads, they are supposed to give a 4-week notice, but for police officers, sworn police, we don't require that they let us know a certain amount of time ahead of time. Usually, though, they're pretty good about letting us know at least a month or so, if not more than that, ahead of time.
Yes, and they have. They've been very good, at least from the retirees. I've had a few now in my 6 months here, but anywhere you go, there's usually most often you're leaving in good standing. So there's ceremonies or a luncheon or things that you do for their retirement, and they all want to get their last day with the things and the acknowledgement. So they're done well in advance. At least a month is when we've been told. So the one in the summer, it's just been a informal. This is going to happen, but it's not on paper yet. So the one from September, that's in September, October. He's been talking about it, already getting his medical checks. So it's just a matter of time before that letter comes in, and I'm probably going to expect it to late summer.
The fall is when we will be taking part of the town, too, right?
October, end of October. I think November 1st is our first day. Yes. Any questions? Okay, our monthly order-in report for April, we had a total of 12 order-ins. That's down from March. The number of order-ins per current unfilled patrol positions was 2. Patrol staff availability was 81%, 19 was unavailable. There were no significant events. This morning was a significant event that we'll talk about for June. We had that fire. There was one individual. Don't know if that was public yet. Okay, there were some complications in that fire, which kept the law enforcement personnel on scene for a while, and which means we needed order-ins for that for today, and they'll be brought up next month. So not bad for order-ins for the month of April. Although the month of April for 2021 was less. Not being here, I don't have much to say about that, but compared to what we're doing this year, it was down. Moving on, if there's no questions, I did mention the swearing in and pinning in of new officers, May 23rd, 1 o'clock p.m. I know Fact TV is going to be involved. I do believe in acknowledging our personnel. I really do. I think it's a good morale builder, and it helps them, acknowledge. It brings acknowledgement also from the family to be a part of it.
And
Where's
that'll
the
be here.
location? Sorry.
Pardon?
The location of that pinning ceremony?
Going to be here at 1 o'clock on Monday. All right. Sarah, do you want to talk about the repeat applicants?
So we hold 2 to 3 recruitments for police officer every year. We're starting to see more repeat applicants, some that maybe failed the background or failed the chief interview, and then they apply 6 months later. I did work with our city attorney and our outside employment attorney to make sure that this was vetted and this is something that we could do. But what we need is your approval so that we can avoid sending somebody that failed a criminal background check, for example, right away to the chief interview. Because what happens is they do really well in the interview process, especially the first interviews, but then they get to the chief interview, we already know we've done a background, we already know that they failed. It's not a permanent bar by any means. We understand things can change and, there's second chances. So there's protocol up here, if somebody fails the first interview, no waiting period, go through the process again. But if they fail the chief interview, we want to make sure that they don't get to the chief again for at least a year from that interview date. If they fail the background investigation, we want to look at 3 years from the second interview date as the next time that they can actually, go through the process. And failing the psychological or medical exams, at least 1 year from the second interview date. If they're no call, no show, and we do get these, that they would be banned for at least a year. I hate the word banned, but what we're trying to do here is trying to avoid, the time that is involved for the chief and for the candidate themselves, to avoid getting them to this step when we already know that they won't proceed further. So.
If I can add on to that, it seems like there's constant hiring processes currently within the law enforcement group in Dane County. So we can run a process that's going to go in conjunction with Dane County Sheriff's, which did occur this spring, Sun Prairie, and in Fitchburg. You can have Middleton. You can have any of the others. And what I'm learning in such short notice is there's people that will constantly apply in all 4. So it's easy to learn the process and do well. But at the end, they are not meeting what you would want as the qualifications that you would want a police officer to be. So they're making it to the final step at each law enforcement agency, but then it gets, they're not making it. A question I like to ask, just like Sarah indicated, that you don't want to ban somebody if they didn't make it, is I can't ask if we had a process in December and then in February they're applying again, what have you done to prepare yourself in the last 2 months? There's not much preparation there. You can say, what have you done? Okay, you were here last year. What have you done in the last year to prepare yourself today for this position? And you would hope that there's something more they did there. Whatever the weaknesses were. In some of the things where you wouldn't hire a person, just to give you an example, we had people that scored very well, could be lateral transfer, and they're not doing well in the organization that they're working for. So if they're not doing well there, why would you want that person here? Now, if they worked another year, said, hey, in the last year, I've straightened myself up in the organization that I'm working for. Yes, they caught me sleeping on the job. I'm not sleeping on the job anymore. It was a medical condition, and I got that taken care of, whatever it was. But there's several indicators like that you would say, if you're doing it there, I'm not going to hire you here. But people turn their lives around, people turn things around, and we acknowledge that, but there's got to be some time in between. There's got to be a gap there so that they can show that they're improving.
And I did a survey of other municipalities too. So actually, this is kind of a borrowed protocol process from another municipality. We just updated a little bit, but this is not unheard of to have some type of protocol like this.
Sarah, where does this document live? Where will it be kept?
Well, it's just been newly created, so this is the first of its kind. So we don't have a city policy because we don't really get a lot of repeat applicants for any of our positions except police officer. That's where we see it. We don't even see it for career firefighter because we only post a career firefighter once every, 2 years. So with police, because we post 2 to 3 times a year, that's why we're getting a lot of the same applicants. I mean, I think at the last chief process, you probably saw 3 to 4 repeats from just the process right before that. So chief went through the interviews again, and
Which is why we expanded our list to, normally the chief would interview, or the person in my position would interview up to 10 people, and we upped the list to 23 because some of those were repeaters.
Well, we only had 40 applicants, right? I'm gonna just throw my personal opinion out. I am hesitant to put this on the time frame because I know there is a significant time frame from interview to interview, but I'd like to talk more about this as far as a commission and what everyone else's input is, because failing the first interview, I like that. I think that, yes, you should just, it does take practice. Like you said, sometimes interviewing and sometimes that formal, it is a process and it's practiced, and some of these people are really sharp on it and really good, but then there's something that happens when they get to the final interview with the chief. 12 months is a long time. I would hope if they did fail that chief interview, they made it there for a reason, whether that's good interview skills or the education or whatever efforts that they put towards getting there. I think the background investigation, I agree with that. I don't know, again, the time frame, because we can't change that. If you fail the background investigation, you fail the background investigation, and but I'd like to know other commissioners' input on this, and I think this should be a serious discussion, because we're already now, again, we're limiting our pool for applicants again by putting this out here.
I just have a quick question on the order of events, just because it's been so long since my husband went through the hiring process. Is the chief's interview the last step? Okay, so I'm thinking it would be a good idea to set the parameters, like to prevent them from getting to the chief's interview. I don't know how I want to try to say this, but I think I don't want to disagree, but I kind of like this, how it is sort of presented here, just because I think if they've already failed the background check, they're not going to become a police officer, let's face it. You failed the background check because you've committed a crime elsewhere, you're not going to become a police officer. You're not probably fit for the job, even if 3 years has gone by, because another applicant will come along and maybe look better. But I think having something here is a good use of our resources, setting some sort of parameter. I'm not in the position, obviously, to say how much time that should be, but I think something is better than nothing. Because like Chief Morales just said, he had to take 20 applicants to the final interview when he could have maybe just taken 10, because he had to account for all of these people that were coming to him, having known they were going to fail anyways, regardless. So for me as an employer myself, I would like something in place to prevent that from happening to me, because that's just not good use of a work day or good use of our police chief.
I just want to add one more, I'm sorry. One more piece to that is, I understand the piece completely about looking further into it. We can look at, Commissioner Amble, we can look at this further. But the ones that we are passing on are, would you want that person to be, I look at it, would I want that person to be on the department? And here's, without saying names even, you're giving somebody the authority to wear a badge, a gun, to take somebody's civil liberties away. It's a very powerful position, which comes with a lot of responsibility. And if I re-interview this person again, it's going to consume the time, but at the end of the day, do we want to settle
Same answer.
and have somebody that is going to need too much oversight because we don't trust that that person is at that, we can put that person at a level that we feel comfortable that they can work alone and make those decisions. So doing that, yes, they're going to get better at the interview, but at the end of the day, do they meet, during our process, do they meet that position where I feel comfortable saying we can give this person that authority? Because that's what the authority we're giving them. And that's, at the end of the day, I would rather go short. I don't want to say that because it consumes our members with order-ins and things of that nature. But if I can't find enough on the list, like we just did one and we went short one, I just, I got to look at myself in the mirror, say I'd rather go short than put somebody out there and put our community or put that officer at risk, however it lands based on the interview.
So it appears to me that if you feel strongly you need this, that perhaps there's some lack of discretion on the front end that isn't available to you. And in my view, or maybe for my own education, if I apply, am I guaranteed an interview? Do I get a first interview? I mean, is there any discretion within the department to vet the initial list of applicants before it would get to a more formal phase?
We always push people through, so we would never skip over people. If they score, if they rank high, first they have to meet the qualifications, and then if they meet the qualifications and they score well on the applications, they're all invited to the interview process. If they score well in the interview process, we don't review a list of the candidates and make sure that it's okay. Public sector employment, civil service, we're not civil service, but we want to be careful about skipping over people without reason, right? Because we have to get in touch with these candidates and let them know why we're skipping over them, why they're not invited to the chief interview. If somebody wanted to contest the process and review our recruitments and see where they fall on a list and that they were skipped, we have to answer to that. So there isn't a lot of discretion. There isn't any discretion about who we can bring in at various steps. If they score well, then they're advancing.
There is a box that they do have to check. Does it say, was it previously employed by the city or was it previously applied?
Both. Yep.
So is that just something we have to live with? You're filling two positions, you get 150 applicants, you got to spend your time interviewing 150 people? When you can discount potentially with freedom 80% of them for various reasons, legitimate reasons, you still have to go through that process. That's just the way it is.
Well, we can talk to our employment attorney about that. It's just, that's where discriminatory practices can get inserted into processes. Why are we skipping over this person? Are they part of a protected class? What are our reasons? So we just have to be careful. But we can certainly explore that with our legal department.
I think with this last process, in talking with other people, that it used to be a waiting list. There used to be hundreds of applicants for these two positions. It was groups and masses coming to apply for this. And now we're in a place where, we had 40 applicants and it was, let's work with these 40 applicants and see if we can help them and see if we can not hold their hand, but educate them on this process because it is different. It's very different than a lot of other processes. And that was something that we wanted to do as a city and see if we can help, get somebody to understand it and be a part of it. But
we went through the application scoring, but we only had 40 candidates. So we said forget the scoring, let's just invite everybody to the interview. So we invited all 40 to the interview. I think only 30 actually scheduled an interview and showed up for the interview. And of those 30, that's where we got the top ranks to send to the chief interview.
And I think it's important to say too, is that a couple of the applicants who we would have passed on because their applications weren't filled out as thoroughly and accurately as we would have maybe deemed required, we brought them in and they ended up into the interview process and making it to the top ranks through there, just because of their personality. So there's a lot of things to factor in when we're in a time where we're so short. And I'm not saying this is hiring, I'm saying this is just the process of getting them to there. I definitely by no means want to lower our standards when we actually do the hire. I think talking through things through processes are important though too. And
Absolutely.
I'm open to discussion. I think it's great that I like everybody's perspective and I respect everybody's perspective.
We can always bring it to our legal department and see if we have more flexibility to just kind of have more discretion at the front end. Hey, we see someone that we just interviewed 6 months ago, can we just skip over them and bring the next candidate? I feel like I kind of already know the answer to that, but I don't know. So, I mean, we can look into that, and then we can bring this back to a future PFC meeting too. We don't have to make a decision today by any means.
I'm sensitive to that, but there's
Yeah.
also at-will laws that I think also have to be, at least considered, especially with a department with very limited resources, as we see. This process, playing this process out might not be, and certainly probably is not, the best use of Chief Morales' time, if it's simply this gamemanship, if you will, of getting good at the interview process. That's not what we want either, I don't think.
And I agree, Commissioner Amble, the more heads that come to this that really want to play a role in helping out, I'll entertain or listen, or however we can come up with an idea for a better way. We're not saying this has to be done this way. At the end of the day, what we're looking for is qualified candidates, and how do we create a process? We've been banging our heads together these last weeks. How can we do a better recruiting process? How can we hire people? Otherwise, we're seeing the same people, knowing, what, I'm getting to know these people pretty well.
Yeah.
They
are again.
But is that the person you want?
Right.
So how do we change that? How do we get better at it during a time when we're lacking that, without saying we're gonna settle?
Right.
And that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to settle. So we're not saying this is the best idea.
Right.
So
No, but I think it's
if we
great
wanna
we're-
get into a think tank
We're
of
talking
working
about
group,
it. Yeah,
do it.
I think that's great. And knowing other departments are doing it, obviously it is an issue in the industry. So no, I think we just keep discussing it, and I would love knowing what is working for other people. And obviously I respect your opinion on this, and I know it is your time. But if there's some other legally, right, because we are legally bound to a process as well too, so.
Well, and that's where not a legal comment, but I don't think we're bound to anything. It's going to be a question of risk. Are we willing to say to the bottom third of the applicant scoring people, we're not going to take you because of your poor application score, regardless of race, color, religion, whatever else. And frankly, as part of the process, maybe we need to eliminate all those protected characteristics from the process. So we don't know if someone is white, black, Hispanic, over 40, under 40, whatever. We're just judging on the merits, and that should mitigate some of the risk as well, I would think.
Yeah, and names are redacted, and all of the ethnicity, gender, all of that's hidden, so nobody sees that. It's just the PFC sees that as part of the hiring recommendations. You can see all the statistics, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think there's some reasonableness when it comes to repeat applicants. I think, Chief, it feels like part of what you're getting at with the 12 months for each, for the different categories is, what's the reasonable amount of time individuals need to improve or further develop, right? Is it three months? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? And I think you've put a stake in the ground at this point in saying, you know what, after about 12 months, to me, that's reasonable that someone has made some marked improvements. So I think that's what you're trying to get at with, because part of the issue here is, for me anyway, the length of time that someone is allowed to apply again. And if you're really trying to get at, I want to see marked improvement or development in individuals who come back around, then 2 months isn't reasonable to me. to have that expectation.
I'll play a real scenario without mentioning the name. We went to 23 on the last list because one of the sergeants interviewed went up to 23, and I would have interviewed 30 at this if it would have been number 30. This person has a lot of potential, graduate from Whitewater. He sees him as a real good police officer. So the sergeant brought this to my attention. Well, let's interview more because I saw the same names on the front of the list, and I said, Sarah, how can we expand our list? So we interviewed him. He did well. But again, one of the questions and one of the things when it gets to me is, okay, is there anything we're going to find in your background? And he mentioned an item in the background where you had contact with, actually arrested, okay? That arrest does not prevent him from applying or being a police officer in the future, but from the time when he was arrested to now is not enough time. And I actually offered to talk to him afterwards because he's going to, if he goes the right road, he will be a police officer. So I wanted to reach out and talk to him to say, if I were you, if you really want to be a police officer, here are some of the things you need to do. And you need to take some time in your other job where you're at right now to show where you're at. And when you come back in maybe a year or two down the line and you apply, these are the things that you're going to have to show that you improved on. He never called back. He did send an email. We tried to set up a phone call, and he never called back, but I wanted to let him know, here are some of the things that you need to do. He obviously caught the attention of other people in the panel that said he'll be a good applicant, but that incident is holding him back. And that's not something that we're going to hire him on in 3 months or 6 months if he were to apply again. But he's definitely going to make it to a chief's interview.
So one thought I had on this draft is instead of the use of the term failing, maybe we could use not advancing beyond. So not advancing beyond a first interview, not advancing beyond a chief's interview. Just I think the terminology might be preferable.
So to that point, I'm glad you brought that up. If we have 3 positions available and you're interviewing 23 people, you're only putting 3 forward. Does that mean the other 20 are failing the interview with the chief? Or is that you passed but you didn't get selected? How is the distinction there and how does it apply here?
Not necessarily. In our last list, we had 5 positions. We came up with 9. And we went through the entire 9 on backgrounds where now some were getting hired at other departments or some failed the background. And that's how we came up short. So we could create an eligibility list.
But I hear what you're saying. You're saying, how do we differentiate between, they didn't necessarily fail it, they just weren't as qualified as the 3 above them. So they didn't fail it, they didn't, because to me, failing a chief interview, the chief does not want you. But that's not the case. The chief just wanted these 3 more so than. So how do we navigate that?
Well, actually, it was 9. So 9 passed the chief interview, but then of the 9, I think half of them didn't pass the background. And so really, a failing chief interview is going to be, you're not even going forward with a background check. You're not going forward with any of the other steps in the process. So
Does the not advancing beyond language solve that problem? So let's say you have 20 people who go to the chief for the interview. Those 20 people did not advance beyond the chief's interview. All right, so 20 people go to the chief, 9 of them are recommended to the PFC. There are 11 people then who did not advance beyond the chief's interview. But the 9 people, we might select 4. Those 9 aren't barred from applying again.
No, not at all. But they might be barred when they get to the background investigation, because usually that's what's going to, you want to hire these 9, but you have to do so many backgrounds because we have so many people fail the background, so.
I'm for the background thing. I think that's kind of what gets caught up sometimes is sometimes, like I said, our hands are tied when there is certain background things that come up, and it's not recommended. I don't know how we get around the failing of or even not passing the chief interview. but the background thing, I am for that. I'm to that part. I don't like the first two, but
So are you saying that instead have no waiting period for if you failed the chief interview? Like give them another.
like I
get
need
the
I need a better explanation of what failing the chief interview is. Because, like I said, 20 people made it to the chief interview out of 50.
Yep.
And then only 10 of them got brought up as recommended by the chief. Does that mean the other 10 failed, or does that mean the other 10 were just not as good as the current 10 that he wanted?
It's a good question.
Right, like, I mean, I'm open to suggestions, and I think it's now, again, that time restraints that you have, but also the lack of applicants. If it's a verbiage thing or whatever, a perception thing, I'm open to suggestions, but
Well, maybe the two of you and whomever else was part of your working group can kind of take back the comments and
Absolutely.
share.
Yeah,
share
we can
something
bring
next
this
month.
to a future PFC meeting and give you some time to think on this, so.
Or even sit down with one of you after, not today, but later and discuss this further too. I'll take the input. We're just trying to be somewhat efficient, but
absolutely. No, I agree. I want you guys to, yeah, your time is very valuable, and I think that's pertinent.
And having a policy to point people back to as far as why we're skipping over people and we're not,
Right.
pushing them forward. I want to have that transparency there. If they failed the background, then let's let them know that
Right.
here's what happened, so.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for, I mean, this is something that needs to be in place in some form of it, so thank you for bringing it to our attention. Let's keep talking about it, and I do like to know what other departments are doing. I think that does resonate, if they're successful with it or if they have had any issues with it. I'm glad you looked at other comparables too, so.
And kind of like how you started to allude to, Sarah, it's gonna need to be a policy. It's not just gonna be like a document that's just hanging out on the chief's desk. Like, this needs to be a formal policy.
Well, and that goes back to Brian's earlier question as well. Where does this live? We have our
Yeah.
rules and regulations as a police and fire commission. We set the kind of standards for hiring along with the civil service kind of handbook requirements and I guess the collective bargaining agreement. So,
Actually, it probably could be inserted in the rules and regulations. That might be a really good resting point for it because it's not really city-wide policy, so I'd avoid the employee handbook, but the PFC rules and regulations, we could have this in there. Might be a good spot for it.
yeah, maybe another component to think through in the next month.
I have one more question on the order of events. So the first interview is very clear to me, but the other points, like the failing the background and failing the psychological, correct me if I'm wrong, but those both occur after the chief's interview, correct? Okay, so we're sort of like stuck here, I guess, and preventing the chief. I mean, the three together are just kind of sticky.
And they cost the city a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of money to
Right.
send for the background, to do the
Oh,
background
yeah.
investigations and to do this,
yeah.
that's always been a discussion in the industries in the emergency services for a very long time. And I haven't heard of many good solutions. We've always just kind of followed that same procedure.
Yeah. I think now's a good time. Like you said, we've always done it this way. Maybe now it's being brought to our attention, so we need to address it, and we need to incorporate this in one way or another through policy. I think we're going in the right direction.
All right, any other thoughts on agenda item 6C, protocol? Well, why don't we move on then to other hiring practices and the department update? Item D.
Would you like me to start or you want it? Sarah?
A variety of topics.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that we wanted to kind of explore and share with you, and Chief wanted to share kind of his vision and thoughts for the police department moving forward.
This is where I'm going to be a little long-winded. When I took over in October, and there was the Police and Fire Commission group. Some of you were on it, some of you weren't. you interviewed the staff, the rank and file of the Fitchburg Police Department to see, how morale was, what were some issues, what did you see? And I happened to obtain the list of all the angry comments that came from there. Interesting, and this is why I want to fill you in with some of the information now that I've been able to look into things and maybe offer up some reasoning behind some of that. But some of the big comments were women leaving the job to go to other departments for more opportunity, the ability for variety of opportunities within the department, opportunity for growth, for promotion, diversity, were some of the key points in this. We since then we did some processes. There just happened to fall on my lap a promotional position for lieutenant. I don't like to use the word lieutenant in those positions because the description for the 2 lieutenants we have in the organization are more of a commander captain position. They oversee a bureau type position, project managers of a larger area. A lieutenant is more like a ship commander or specific to one item that they're working on and overseeing the leadership in that capacity, for short, and discussing job descriptions. So we did some extensive work and came up with a good applicant. And I'll tell you something, when it comes to diversity, you put the best applicant. And if the diversity falls within there, falls within that. And I'm telling you that I'm very confident, very happy with there's competency, there's qualified, and there's competence within our diversity in the organization. And we did find our lieutenant position was a female. And I'm saying that so much as some of the things that were brought up, female positions. There's also a push for 30 for 30, which is the 30% of the organization being female by 2030 in different capacities. So I've had meetings with the group, and I'm going to give credit to the leadership in Fitchburg before I came in. That includes City Administrator Chad Brecklin. I don't think the department saw it, or the PFC may have not seen it, because we're going through COVID. So how many changes can you make? What kind of projects can you do where you're supposed to stay away from people? Right? So the department was somewhat in a stagnant position because you didn't have the ability to move, grow, and offer these opportunities at no one's fault. But the planning, as soon as we got somewhat out of COVID, got our masks off, we're able to now create projects, the level of energy within the department has just skyrocketed. And again, I won't take credit for that as much as it was already in place. I just happen to be here. But there's great leadership here. We created the rotating detective position, the community liaison officer, new FTOs, opportunity for bicycles. We don't even have the bicycles yet, but we're already sending people out for bicycle training. The 30 by 30 group, and even bringing together, I call them think tanks, but they're working groups to participate for even the uniform. And there's been a lot of activity and inclusion on that part. I will tell you, and I met with the 30 by 30 group last, but the numbers don't really show, but they're coming. The rotating detective position, 3 people applied for that position, and 1 person got it. There was 1 female and 2 white males. 1 white female. The 1 white female is at a position where she's going to come up later in hiring, but she's got more than 12 years on the job. This is an opportunity for developing somebody into an investigator position. She already has that. So the male got it, but there's something else that she's going to get. She's going to be placed more in a leadership role in the FTO program. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just for our reference, the FTO is field training?
I'm sorry, yes, field training officer. And I'm realizing I'm on camera, so they've been notified. There are officers that watch this, so they're going to be picking up on some things that they haven't been notified on. Nothing negative, it's all positive. But All three of them are going to be utilized in upcoming positions. We're also, in Dane County, we're creating a group that's going to be able to join together to investigate the officer-involved incidents. You can't investigate your own in a critical incident, so you have to come up with a team, and we're developing a team in Dane County to help that. Normally, the State Department of Criminal Investigations handle them, but they're backing off of some of these. They're being overwhelmed with the number of cases that are happening throughout the state. So there needs to be a secondary plan. We're developing people that aren't investigators that are going to be able to be a part of that. All three of them did very well, and they're all going to be a part of this program that we're going to develop. We're developing now, but the future trainings are set for the fall, and they're going to be included in that. The community liaison officer, two males, one black male, one white male applied. They're both going to be getting. We're starting with one of them in a couple of weeks. The other one's going to start sometime mid-July for our community liaison, and that's just based on the staffing and getting them up and running, train one and get the other one going, because we don't have the capacity to do both of them at once. But they're both going to be the community liaison officers, and we got a ton of work set up for them, especially the town of Madison. Each and every one of these positions are going to be very extensive, but it's things that they want to do, which is going to bring that energy there. The field training officer program, 6 applied, and we're sending 4 to a field training school, 2 females, 3 white males, and 1 Hispanic male. And out of the people selected for the first group, the 2 females are going, 1 white male and 1 Hispanic male. For the bicycles, we had 3 applied, and currently I think we have 2 that are going to be going to the bicycle. I haven't gotten an update, but right now we have 3 white males, and that's still open. So we're going to get more, and we'd like to get our CLOs, or community liaison officers, into that bicycle piece as well. So they're probably going to eventually get trained on using the bicycles, so they can use their bikes to work within the community. The 30 by 30 program that I discussed, I was able to meet with them afterwards, and they're very happy with the changes. We talked, and Sarah and I talked about some of the things, the struggles with a female in law enforcement is the babies. Females have babies, men don't have babies. And how do you accommodate that? We worked on some things. COVID has opened the door to be able to do some things from home, what we're doing right now with Zoom. The world that I came from, there was actually the mother was given more time than we give them here. However, limited duty capacity, we can extend that more and allowing them to work from home, and even then, a hybrid program on coming back. They're very happy with that. It's not in writing. We will eventually see how we can put that in writing, but we don't need to put that in writing if we can create a job description that's going to allow them to do things from home. Limited duty capacity, you always have to have some availability because we do get hurt. We have one officer that just got off field training where he hurt his wrist a couple of months ago. So you have to, and we do have enough work where if a mother had her child and had family medical leave for 3 months, we can accommodate a few months after that. I don't know extensively how much. I'd like to say another 3 months, but we can work on identifying that piece, and that's what I spoke with them. Let's identify that piece. So now we can get a program where you can work from home, take your laptop, and I'll assist, and then after that, a hybrid until you're up and running, and it gives you more time with that child. The one thing that's going to be very difficult as this department grows, the needs are not on the first shift. They're at nights, and that's law enforcement. As the department grows, you need supervision, management. You're going to hear me say that a lot because I'm asking for, and some of you know about the piece, the shift lieutenant position. You need that type of supervision in the times when the calls for service and potential for things to happen in a negative manner occur. And they usually occur in the evening or nighttime hours or after bar. And that's where, as this department grows, that's where we're going to be growing in the opportunities. And that will always be a struggle for a family, a person who's strong with family values that wants to be with family, that's the constant. That's the concept, and that's where we're at. But very happy conversation. I thought that the group would have been connected to some of the women in law enforcement groups that are out there. Again, where I came from, almost all the women were connected to these different national organizations. They are now got those resources, and some of those resources, the level of thinking, the ideas have probably already been thought. We just haven't reached, like Commissioner Amble said, what are other departments doing? So here are some resources where we can identify what other departments are doing and how we can implement some of those. So that went very positive, but I can't give credit to myself. These things were already, in place. They just weren't in motion. All I did is, not saying that, what is that, a pun? I just pulled the trigger, but it was already there. Hiring and recruiting is a struggle. Hiring, we'd like to, and this is a think tank, we are going to eventually develop a working group. We're banging our heads downstairs and coming up with ideas, but what are the first steps? We do have we call it ARPA money, or the Badger bounce back. So there is some money there. I like to do I think we can do a better job at how we advertise. I think we have to, and this comes from the team. When I say it's some of the thought processes that are coming from the team. We got to do a better job at how our website is built. We got to do a better job at putting the information out there. I do have a decent travel home. And what am I seeing when I'm going home outside of cornfields is billboards. And not too far from here, I can drive and see a billboard for a particular college. I know we're on TV, so I'm not going to name the college, the university, but it's on the northwest side of Milwaukee County on the lake. Where that billboard is at, you're still a 50-minute drive to that school. And they have a billboard there. And I just happen to see it every time I pass because I know the kid that's in the picture. I know his father, I know him, so I chuckle, but how far is that away? And who are, they're reaching areas beyond Dane County. And I'm not going to fight another chief for a 23-year-old person who has not really proven themselves on the job. And we shouldn't be doing that. How can we expand our reach? And how can we brand ourselves? We often say Fitchburg, but it's Madison first and then Fitchburg. We're by Madison. How can we brand ourselves? It's going to cost some money, and we're looking at using this ARPA funds, but we need, I hate to be the one that has to come up with the ideas. There's people that are very good at coming up with the ideas. What kind of video do we post? And, coming up with the QR codes for the new generation where, we can say billboard, but how do you get your phone up there to do the QR code that's going to take you to that website? How do you do all of these things? So we're in that piece. We decided that we're going to go for that money. There isn't the specific rules, however, on how to use that bounce back money if we can use it in this capacity. The other piece is, do you go with the flow or do you come up with other ideas? And you can see one person says, we're offering a $1,000 signing bonus, $7,000 signing bonus. It keeps growing, but is that the right way? Or do you reward the people that are working for you already and give them the bonus for bringing somebody in? And in addition to that, some of the things we have in place, some Prairie does not have residency. Our fire department does not have residency, so why does Fitchburg Police Department have residency? I rather have you respond within an hour. So how do you put miles within an hour? If you're right next to the highway, I'm 45 minutes away, 40 with no traffic. And if I'm driving a squad, I'm 30 minutes away. You look at that, how can you put miles on it? The other piece is lateral transfers. Commissioner Brecklin and I had a conversation, and he was able to get the lateral transfer, but that's still a work in progress. Now what do you do with the lateral transfer? We're offering lateral transfers, depending on where they're at, up to 3-year pay and 3-year benefits. We have 2 females that have 12, 13 years on the job and are very competent. And they came in at 3-year pay. So they have 7 more years to get to top pay when they came here with 12 and 13 years experience. We have 1 male who has 26 years of law enforcement experience and is going to start at 3-year pay. It just doesn't make any sense. And the level of experience that all 3 of them bring to the table is amazing. We should be giving them the top pay after probationary period. And all 3 of them, knowing that the one that's coming and knowing the 2 that are there, they've shown no reason why they shouldn't be at top pay. So the lateral transfer still has some things that we have to tweak. We're working on those with Sarah. And the recruiting process, we got a long way to go to brand ourselves, to have something that stands out. The police facility downstairs, we're in a basement. And I think part of that is being in the basement, the feel that you're in the basement, the smell that you're in the basement. I mean, do you want to work there, or do you want to see some of the nice facilities that are out there? And that'll be a constant discussion. And I got a lot of ideas with the new police department. Coming from a department where we're designing a training facility, those are still fresh. There's a lot of ideas there that are community-centric, also for the morale of the organization. You want to have a facility that you want to go to, that you feel comfortable with. Some of us like to exercise. You want to have that gym. You want to, your office space. You name it. There's a design and things that will make it you want to come here. So you got to make that appealing if you want that. You want to really invite a workforce that wants to be a part of this organization. We got a lot of work. And that's why we're banging our heads. And I'm not the one that's going to come up with the ideas. It's going to be bringing the right work group that has that artistic view that can come up with some of that.
So Chief, thank you. You provided a lot of good information and background. What I'm curious about, so you started out with let's say the data that was collected, from before you joined the department. What I'm interested in, because you talked about some things that have been done or implemented since you've been on board. So it sounds like you got a good foundation set, or a baseline, I should say. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about going back at this point and talking to your members to see if the needle has really moved in terms of their sentiment and how they feel about the department and so forth?
No, we haven't, and maybe we can do that. Or do we wait for the year, or do we do a 6-month?
No, I think, and just to kind of get everybody on the same page, because we have had a lot of changes, and I've only been on here a year, and we went right into hiring, and it was a very long process, a lot of hours. But what we did as PFC members is we put ourselves out to the staff and the line crews and listened to them, and what do they want in a chief? What concerns do they have? And Chief, I just want to say thank you, because hearing this list, this is exactly what we were going to lose members, because they didn't have these things. And I feel like you have done exactly what we had hoped that you had done. And so thank you very much for kind of taking the bull by the horns. And I know you say you have a great team, and I know it does take a team, but I'm very happy to hear these things are being put in place. And I know that is why that now there is hope. There is, we went from a department that had 0 minorities in admin, and now we're already increasing that by a significant amount. I think you're giving the department hope, and that's what's going to set us apart from other departments come in the future. I don't know as if a billboard will work, but I think having these systems in place, having, letting women know that if they do come here, they are going to be supported and encouraged if they do have to go on, if they do choose to go on maternity leave or whatever, or if they have to nurse their child, what are we going to do to accommodate that, right? We have to put those systems in place that, because we can recruit, but if we don't have that culture and don't have that here, we're gonna fail, and we are gonna keep seeing the turnover. So thank you, and I am all for having a recap, and I think all the officers really appreciated us coming out and having coffee with them. We would sit and just have coffee with a couple of them, and they would express their concerns. No names, no judgment. We opened it up and just said, tell us your concerns, and we want to address them. And so I think it was good for you to see that as far as what some of the concerns were. I don't think any of them were out of spite. I think genuinely they wanted to change, and you're doing that, so thank you. I'm open to coffee anytime with any of the officers if they ever wanted to. I don't know if you'd get a valid or like a genuine,
Right.
you know, I would hope so. I would hope they'd feel comfortable doing that, but I think you still are their chief, and
Absolutely.
we might have more, get a better response like we did.
And I have a thick skin, so nobody's perfect.
Right.
And I will welcome it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Well, you know,
And there are anti-retaliation protections too, so the chief can't retaliate against you. But yes, I do. I mean, I think the officers should be encouraged to go to the chief, and then I think they should be open to coming to us as well, like we did through that process. And I'd echo, thank you, chief, for all the things that you and the staff have done. It's been great to see, and look forward to more of it.
Yeah. Keep us posted. This is great.
One thing that catches my eye in particular is the lateral candidates. I believe that's a collective bargaining agreement hindrance. And the basic idea is you have someone with 15 years of experience, like the chief said, who can only come in and get credit for up to 3 years of service. And to me, that's just wrong. And that is absolutely a bar to recruiting. I understand that's the way old unions did it, but I think that's antiquated and wrong, and I'd love to see it go. And union leadership should take another look at that. We want qualified people regardless of how much time they've had. They should get credit for the time that they have, and we'll bring more lateral candidates in that way.
And we need to keep up with the times. If other, our comparables aren't doing residency, we are in a time where people can respond and can be here, and I would like to see that go away too. I don't know if that's something that we can vote on or.
With the residency requirements in the contract, so we just got over negotiations and just negotiate a new contract, so we'd have to do an MOU. We've already started the talks with the union to see if they would be open to removing the residency requirement. So if they agree, then we can put an MOU together and we can implement right away. Same goes with the lateral language. If we decide to make that change, the union just has to agree. We have to also make sure financially we can do it, because are we only doing it going from this day forward? Are we going to try to get the current officers that we have on board that have more years of experience, that higher rate of pay? So there's some things to work through with those two. We're also hopefully implementing a paid parental leave next year. So we don't have any paid parental leave, unfortunately, at the city of Fitchburg. So that would be a citywide initiative, 6 full weeks of pay. So that has to go through all the budget approvals, but that would hopefully help, with the 30 by 30, and it would be for, mothers, fathers. So, yeah, exciting.
That's very exciting.
I just want to expand really briefly, like Chief Morales alluded. We have to have a nice place that, like, our officers come to work, like we're in the basement. I know we're talking a lot about recruiting, and that's our focus, but I think it's equally as important to keep the lovely team of officers we have right now. We're in Dane County. It's super competitive. It's no secret Madison's paying more. So how do we keep and brand this group of wonderful people that we have? It's a heck of a lot cheaper in the long run to keep a good guy than spend millions of dollars on a billboard, and all this advertisement and banging our heads is not helpful. So that's just a comment that I just wanted to throw out there. It's a thought that's in my mind as I'm hearing recruitment and hearing billboards, and it's like, what is our rate of officers leaving, Chief Morales? Like, how many do you lose a year to other departments? Do you have that statistic?
I don't have that, but I think it was last year, Sarah, we had 2 females leave for Madison. We had 2 that were on the list for Madison currently. One is on that's one of them that I said was going to a federal position. So he turned down the Madison. The other person turned down the Madison position as well. So at least we have 2 retained for now, but they were selected by Madison, or they were on their way to be selected for Madison. And then the retirements. So let's see, more so in the recent hiring process that we did a couple of months ago, we lost the number 2 on the list to Sun Prairie. And there was another individual that dropped out. He was in a federal department. So he was going to come here, and he backed out after we offered him the job. So
I would also like to see, I think, I was really shocked to find out, and I don't know if anybody else knows this, but when you get offered an opportunity as far as joining Fitchburg Police Department, you have to turn down any application processes
Yes.
that you're going through elsewhere. You have to tell them no. I don't love that. I don't think that, I understand as far as like a budget and you want them to be serious, but I would too like to see that. I don't know where that lies, what, if that is contractual or, but I think the more flexibility we give as far as that, we hope that we can keep them. Because that would be, I would probably, you know, if I was put in a situation where it was either take this or turn down maybe 4 other, I don't know, that would put myself in a hard spot. And I don't know if that's like I said, an industry-wide in the police department. I've never heard about it in the fire service. But I would like to talk more of that too, as far as, because they have to turn down if they have
It's
any
across
other,
the
and it's
board.
such a competitive, and it's not even, they're not even guaranteed the offer because it's still contingent on their background and their psych and their physical. And so if they have to say no to other places, still, that leaves, that would, and it's such a, it's a hard process, so, I would like to see that talked about more.
I think there's a clarification I can provide on that. I was looking at the offer letter, and I can tell you exactly what it says here, but that we have statistics we look at all the time. So I just pulled a ton of stats for Angela Rollinger, who's kind of leading the 30 by 30 group. So I'm more than happy to share those with you if you're kind of interested. I have a spreadsheet handy right now that just talks about, it was just going back to 19, but we lost 16 police officers in the last 5 years. That was back in 19 when I pulled this. So unfortunately, I don't have the other spreadsheet handy, but add whoever we've lost since 19 to that, and 5 of the 16 were female, and that was back in 19. So I apologize, I don't have that handy right now. But I believe that the offer letter actually does give a little bit of leeway there. Let me look at the last offer letter. So we had just sent one out for this latest person who's starting on Monday. And bear with me here. It actually states, you must formally remove your name from all eligibility lists or processes for hiring with our other agencies once conditions 1 through 4 have been successfully met. And 1 through 4 is getting through the physical exam, getting through the psychological, the drug screen, and the background investigation. So they don't actually have to
That's good.
withdraw their name until it's actually final, because you'd hate for them to have to do that, and then they don't pass something on our end,
Right.
and now
Okay,
they've
good, no, thanks for
pulled
that
out.
clarification when I heard that. I was-
Yep.
Good.
So I think a lot of these things are issues that concern us. I don't know if they're within our authority to control. Chief, you mentioned the working groups or think tanks that you have getting together. Perhaps a member or 2 of the commission, so that it's not a meeting of the commission, could join you for those, if people are interested. Be part
Absolutely.
of that process, knowing that it might, none of these things, all of these things are probably not things we can change ourselves, of course.
Right. No, I agree. I think that's great.
Sarah, you mentioned the MOU process is already underway for this most recent CBA.
Not yet, so we're still waiting to hear back from the union to see if they would agree to removing the residency requirement. It has to be in collaboration with the union, so we can't put together MOU and sign off on it unless
Right.
they agree. Yep.
But the dialogues
The
happen.
ball's rolling.
So I would suggest
Yep.
to Commissioner O'Day's point that we also talk about this lateral move
Right.
issue, because the CBA is 2 years, right? Is that the duration?
3-year contract.
3 years, so
Right.
I don't know how difficult MOUs are, but if it's unusual to do that process, I would piggyback on the one you've already started as it relates to the lateral moves instead of waiting 3 years to renegotiate it,
Right.
subject to the budget,
Right.
constraints you'd be under, but.
Yep.
That seems like a huge impediment to me from a lateral perspective.
Right.
Yep.
And a big pool, a big applicant pool, I would think, that would just dismiss you immediately.
Right.
If I lose 10 years or 12 years
Oh, yeah.
of tenure.
Right.
And if we're going to keep building this, the diversity and all the training and all the places and make this a place where people want to be, we want them to be able to get here
Right.
and compensate them appropriately. I think it's great that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
This is exciting, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on item number 6D of the agenda? Okay, well, thank you, Chief. Appreciate it, as always.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7, any announcements? One thing I'll mention, and Commissioner Johanning, you mentioned, I think you referenced something about, you might disagree with something one of us or all the many of us said. And it was a great process when we brought Chief Morales on, and we had a lot of discussions as a commission about the fact that we're making hard decisions, that we can respectfully disagree and do it meaningfully and respectfully, but still have disagreements. And not every vote we take will be unanimous. Not every decision we make will be supported by everyone in the process. But I think there's value in having those discussions in a professional manner, and we have always done that. We did it with our commissioners that just recently left us, and we were appreciative of that. And I think we can do it as a group of 5 moving forward ahead. And we should always feel free to disagree, I guess is what I would say. Respectfully.
Yeah.
Any other announcements? Okay. With that, any motions relevant to agenda item number 8?
As the newest member of the commission, I will move we adjourn my very first meeting of the
I'll
Police and Fire
second it.
Commission.
As the other newest member.
There you go. Any other discussion? Welcome, new members. We're excited to have you. All right, all those in favor of adjourning, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Great. Thank you.